So I've been making music for about 11 years now, and if I could sit down and share with my past self 5 tips to kind of just save time and get better as a producer, this is what they would be. And I hope that it saves you money, time, and frustration. Hey friends, what's going on? Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out my channel as always. For those of you who are new here, first off, thank you so much for stopping by and checking out my video. I'm Daniel from iosoundstudio.com. My goal is to impact the world with music, inspire, and teach others to do the very same thing. If you guys are returning, then first off, man, you guys rock. Thank you so much for coming back. I really do appreciate that. Now, over the years, I have spent countless hours researching different microphones, different cables, different guitars, different amps, different outboard compressors, preamps, you name it. I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours checking out this gear on YouTube, watching reviews, going to music stores, trying it out for myself, all of those things. And honestly, even though I do think it is worth eventually investing that time to make sure you get the best bang for your buck, honestly, if you're just getting started, I would just get something that's budget friendly and I would start getting reps under your belt as soon as possible. I definitely think the idea of buy nice or buy twice does apply to music for sure, but I think honestly that concept is more important as you get a little bit down the road. If you're just getting into music production and you're kind of like a year, 2 years into it, I would honestly recommend getting budget things that allows you to figure out how to use gear to begin with. There's really no sense in spending thousands of dollars on a fancy mic preamp if you don't even really understand gain structure to begin with. If you don't even know how to get a somewhat decent usable sound out of a cheap piece of gear that you could buy instead, I would probably say just buy the cheap thing, learn how to actually use it properly, and then eventually invest in something that's a bit better. When I very first started making music, I actually used like a $35 interface. Here, let me get it. It was this super cheap Behringer Euphoria UM2. It's a very, very, very simple interface. It has one combo jack, one 1/4-inch jack, and a headphone jack, along with a couple of knobs on the top for gain and volume control on the headphone output. It's a very, very simple USB bus powered interface, and this thing got me through the first like 2-3 years of making music, just so that I could kind of understand how to even begin working on songs. Now, does this have the best converters? Does this have the best preamps and all of those things? Absolutely not. But for like $35, $40, this was an invaluable piece of gear for me to just start getting going and making music. I've only gotten good because of the reps that I've put in. It's not necessarily about the gear that I've accumulated over time. And also I bought this $100 condenser microphone. It's the Audio-Technica AT2020 when I was just a teenager making music in my closet in my parents' house. Now, do I still think it's a great microphone? No, not really. Is it my first go-to for most things? Absolutely not. But the reality is that it showed me how to place a microphone. It showed me how to properly distance myself from a microphone when recording vocals. It showed me how to get good tones out of different sound sources. And those things carry over into whatever gear you get down the line. Now, I use better microphones, I use better interfaces now, obviously because I'm several years down the road, but the reality is that I started out with cheap stuff. And honestly, if you're just getting into music production too, don't let the cost of, great, amazing gear be that barrier of entry to just getting started. Just buy something that makes sense. Don't buy absolute garbage because then you're gonna have to replace it like next week. But buy something that's gonna last you like a year, a couple of years, just so that you can actually understand what the heck is going on. Music isn't something that you just sit down and you just figure out in 10 minutes. It's something that takes time, and you can learn those fundamentals on cheaper gear. And realistically, in this day and age, between some stock plugins or some budget-friendly plugins and some budget-friendly gear, you can get pretty decent results that the average layperson is literally not gonna be able to tell the difference. And also realistically, if you can learn how to make really great sounding music on super cheap gear, you're gonna be great at making music on the more expensive gear as well. The second piece of advice that I would give you is to focus on finishing, not on perfecting. I used to spend hours tweaking hi-hats, choosing drum sounds, etc. And those things are important, but realistically, no one's gonna freaking care that much, to be honest, especially if they're just a layperson. If they're another producer or a session musician or a mixing engineer, someone that's actually like in the music industry world, they'll notice for sure. But realistically, most people aren't gonna care. At the end of the day, a finished mediocre song is gonna serve you much better and teach you much more than a perfect 8-bar loop ever will. The third tip that I would give you is to learn one DAW really, really well and then become versatile enough to use other DAWs after you already master the first DAW. When I first started making music, I would spend a lot of time jumping between Ableton and Studio One and Pro Tools, and realistically, the best thing that I could have done at the very beginning would have been to just stay in one of those 3 DAWs or a couple others that I fiddled around with. It would have been better to just stick with one and get really good at that one first and then expand to the others. Now, eventually I did kind of settle on Ableton. I still use Ableton primarily today, and then I eventually expanded to Pro Tools. I dabbled in Logic, those kinds of things. But knowing the one DAW very, very, very well gets you closer to actually creating and releasing songs. If you're kind of like a jack of all trades but master of none as far as DAWs go, that can serve you, to be completely honest, depending on what you're doing. If you're jumping between studios and you're engineering in this studio and that studio, that probably will serve you because they likely don't all have exactly the same software. But if you're just recording in your bedroom studio or your project studio or whatever, it's best to kind of just master one and then supplement that with other DAWs down the line after you master the first. I think all of them can accomplish the same things, but I definitely do think that each DAW is aimed a little bit better towards specific things than others. The fourth tip that I would give you is that reference tracks truly are such a cheat code. Ultimately, they provide you a roadmap of what you can kind of do to get your song sounding the way that you want it to sound. Honestly, one of the most significant things to create a successful song is being intentional beforehand and choosing the right reference tracks, for sure. That already gets you 30-40% of the way into that final song. You don't have to kind of generate everything from scratch from your mind, which there's nothing wrong with that at all. And honestly, I would suggest that every producer does do that every now and then. Go back and just don't use any reference tracks and just kind of come up with everything from your own mind and be creative in that way. But reference tracks absolutely make a big difference. Fifth and finally, and this may be one of the most important tips, is to trust your own ears over the internet. And I've said this before, and I honestly can't stress it enough. People will say only use 3 to 5 dB of gain reduction when using a compressor, but realistically that's not even the best advice, and that idea is actually very, very fluid depending on what it is that you're doing, what you're compressing, what kind of flavor you're trying to get out of the compressor. It just depends. It really just depends. So instead of just taking what this seasoned producer on YouTube said, even myself, instead of just taking that as gospel, get into making the song for yourself. Experiment and push yourself to the limits and figure out how it sounds at the limits. Figure out what you actually like. Figure out what sounds good to your ears. At the end of the day, trusting your ears is going to go way farther than just blindly following someone's advice, even if they've been in the industry for 50 years. Now, I'm not saying to throw out all the advice from people who have been doing it for a long time or from professional producers, mixing engineers, etc. on YouTube. I'm not saying to throw all that out. I'm just saying take their advice with a grain of salt and try things out for yourself. That's going to make you more well-rounded as a producer, a mixing engineer, a session musician, an artist, whatever. And it's going to actually teach you more about the gear and about the techniques and about the things that you are doing yourself. It's going to make you better overall. And also a very real reality is that some of the very best musical moments happen when you're just experimenting and you're just breaking the rules. You're not trying to, stick to this mold of, oh, this person online said to record this way and to have this thing and blah, blah, blah. But you're just kind of taking that and then you're saying, okay, cool, I like that idea, but how can I make it my own? How can I break it? That's where you're gonna find some of the coolest, most magical things as well. That's honestly true for anything. That's true for soloing on a guitar or for, playing drum fills or for, writing a song, arranging a song. Sure, there are kind of guidelines and templates, but honestly, you don't have to stick in those boundaries. If you are new to music production, tell me in the comments below which of these stuck out to you the most. And if you've been producing music for a while yourself, what's some advice that you would give to your starting producer self in the past? Leave that below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Check out my Patreon, check out my socials. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you again with another video very soon. Peace out.